We're live. It is Thursday, June 26th, the year of our Lord 2025. I forgot to look up which day the United Nations General Assembly had declared it to be, so I can't tell you that today. It is 8 o'clock a.m. Look, folks, the heat is relentless. But the sun is shining. The birds are chirping. I'm told the heat is going to break today. We're going to get some rain. It's much needed. It's going to be a great freaking day. Holly is stuck in an airport at Charles de Gaulle in Paris. She is on her way to Kenya. So she's not with us today. But it's going to be a great fucking day. And by the way, the cactus and the snowman are upstairs. I forgot to bring them downstairs. So, you got to imagine the cactus going, "You're watching dog shirt TV and effing revolution in morning television," and the snowman kind of looking on disapprovingly. I'm not used to operating these myself because that's, Holly's job. But the other thing that happened yesterday or the other day or sometime recently is that my Witoad hat showed up. And, you know, that's a good thing in life. I have no idea if anybody's showing up today. I have no idea if there's an audience. I guess there's 16 of you. Um, uh, it's just a Thursday, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm already sweating profusely. I think you needed to know that. I got a long day ahead of me. I have no particular idea what I'm talking about today, so I'm going to talk about Emil Bove. Notice my Chiron says I'm the editor-in-chief, which I'm not really. Oh, look, Eve Gaumond has shown up. And she has shown up not wearing a Woodrow hat and not wearing either a dog shirt or a lion shirt. But
Next time I'll be wearing a lion shirt.
hello, Eve. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And you? The minute I got into screen, I just saw the red cap, and I was kind of afraid for a second, but it's a very
Yes.
nice.
Well, so we decided we had a long discussion about whether we should make Witoad hats available in MAGA colors or not. And we decided to do it, but that we should make them available in other colors as well for those who were, oh, look, I didn't take the tag off.
No, don't. No,
No, I should leave it
the
on.
cool kids keep the tag.
Oh, okay.
I
Well,
don't know.
there's this
I
tag.
don't know if it's still a thing, but like when I was in high school, every kid had kept that little sticker for no reason, and I didn't understand why.
All right.
It was kind of
I'm
a
going to keep it
part of the
on.
style.
Yeah. And so we have the Witoad hats in MAGA colors for the particularly bold, and we have the Witoad hat in other colors for those who have, good taste. How are you this morning?
I'm fine. I'm fine. The warmth has finally dropped, so I'll be able to enjoy life a little more now that I don't have to fear heat stroking in the streets.
Yeah, so what was the hottest it got up in Ottawa?
Well, probably nothing impressive for you DC guys, but and you'll have to do the translation. But it was about 40 degrees Celsius.
Oh, that's
Like,
hot.
yeah, but like not the way it felt. And I don't know exactly what was the actual temperature, because when it gets so warm, people start talking about the more impressive number, which is always the
Right.
feeling.
Right. It's
Um,
always either with the heat index or the the wind chill factor because people like to have suffered, and
Yeah.
people feel like describing the temperature that it felt like is a way of magnifying their suffering.
Right. Or magnifying the fact that it's unprecedented.
That it's what?
Unprecedented? Like it's new,
Yeah,
it's
right.
nah.
It's just more exciting that way to say it's, it's pretty damn hot is just not as fun as saying, you know, it's unprecedented heat and humidity and right, yeah. So like these are not record breaking temperatures in Washington.
Oh, it was
There
here though.
it was.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that we broke two records. Well, again, that's the thing. Um, it's always like it's the warmest it's ever been on June 24th.
Yeah, that's
Like
legit.
it's not like the warmest it's ever been, period. But like, so
Well,
again, we're trying to be impressed.
in Washington it is been super hot. But it's I don't think it's hotter than, you know, 40 degrees Celsius. It may be stuck there longer, but I hear we're going to get a break today. We're going to get rain. And rain is always a good thing to break up a heat wave. So what is on your mind this morning, Ev? I have a cool thing to show you.
Show me the cool thing.
Um, it involves AI and Emil Bove. Do you know who Emil Bove is?
It's the former lawyers, the former Trump's lawyers become. Is he
Yes, you
AG?
got it. So it is the former Trump lawyer who has become uh, acting
Deputy.
deputy attorney general, and yesterday had a hearing for to be a Third Circuit Court of Appeals judge, and he is an ethically problematic figure, let's just say. And he also,
Wait a minute. Is it normal to have people from deputy AG to judge in like these circumstances? Like you
it's
don't.
not that's not people from his position have been nominated to judgeships before many times, um, and that in and of itself is not unusual or problematic. But one of the striking things about Emil Bove, other than that, I don't know how to put this gently, he's completely evil, is that he looks remarkably sepulchral, which is to say, he
He
looks
looks like the husband, Philip, Prince Philip.
well. In my opinion, he looks like Klaus Kinski in Nosferatu the Vampire, the 1978 or 79 movie. And so I used to have a joke with my colleague Anna Bauer when we were watching the New York trial. Whenever he would stand up to make an argument, I would text her, Emil Bove rises from his coffin to address the court, or something like that. And so yesterday I decided that I was listening to the hearing and I was bored. And so I decided, while I listen, I'm going to make a get ready with me video in which Emil Bove, I'm going to do it entirely with AI, in which Emil Bove is getting ready. You're getting ready with Emil Bove, and he's making himself up until he turns into a vampire. That was and I'm going to have a voiceover where so I didn't get very far because it's actually, you can only make 5-second clips at a time with Sora. But I did get started, and I want to share with you. Um,
And did you have any problem with the real person No, he
No,
Sora
I
has
just
given up on.
uploaded a photo of him. I didn't ask Sora to create a you know, Emil Bove sitting. I just uploaded a picture of him. It asked me if I had the rights to use it, and I assured it that I had all the rights necessary to use it. And so here is my 13 seconds of deep fake video of
Holy
Emil
fuck, that's so impressive.
Bove making a get ready with me video. Wait, I've lost your audio.
Oh,
Oh wait,
uh,
oh you're back.
I'm back. Great. He looks younger than he normally looks, right?
I don't know,
Sora
he's
kind of.
44. Does he look 44 in this?
Well,
Remember,
he
he's got a
looks
lot of
more like
makeup on.
44 than he looks on a usual day, right?
I don't know. I thought the rendition of Bove was one of the most impressive things
It
about
is.
it.
I mean, well, yeah, it is strikingly impressive. Like,
It is
I'm always
having
amazed.
trouble with transforming him into a vampire. That's the part that I'm stuck on. I'm gonna continue to work on it. Um and then, we're gonna have to do a his voice
Oh
doing
yeah, it's kind of scratchy.
well, he has a distinct oh well,
Oh.
Holly is joining us. Holly, are you in Charles de Gaulle Airport?
No, I'm in a hotel in Charles de Gaulle Airport. It's
You
been a
made it
shit
through
show.
passport control. Tell us about, we were just sharing
Hi,
a
Ev.
Get Ready With Me Emil Bove
Bonjour, Ev.
video.
Oh, bonjour, Holly.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
Tell
I'm
us
with
about
your
your
ancestral.
travails, Holly.
My what? My travails. Well, I tell you. So I should have kept the Qatar flight because I'd be having no problems despite war in the Middle East. But instead, I got spooked about the war in the Middle East and I changed my flight to go through Paris. And then my flight leaving Washington because of, I guess, weather, but I didn't, they said weather, but I didn't see any weather. So that was delayed by 5 hours, I want to say. So obviously I missed my flight. And so they can't, I mean, if I wanted to fly from like city to city on like a fun tour of Europe and possibly the Middle East, I might have been able to leave here, but that didn't sound like fun. So I just got this hotel. They gave me this hotel and it's very basic. I have a view of a puddle on the roof and it's very basic. It's very like small and
All right,
European.
Holly is breaking up. Um,
Oh,
so Holly, you're breaking up a bit.
oh,
Um,
well,
Uh,
I don't know.
so uh, Sorry for your for the angst and the Sturm und Drang, and best of luck as you continue. Get some sleep.
Thanks.
Um,
There've been other issues which I will not speak about on here, and so I hope this whole trip is not just a disaster. But yeah, so far
but if
not
it's
good.
a but but make sure, Holly, that if it's a disaster, you call it a disaster,
A disaster.
a la Natia.
No, shagala bagala.
Shagala bagala, right.
I like your
Um,
hat.
all right.
Okay, I'm
See you
leaving.
soon.
I'm just came to say hi. So bonsoir, au revoir.
Bonsoir, it was great to see you. Au revoir.
Um, all right, that was a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Um, so where were we?
We were talking about the scratchy voice of Emile
Oh
Bove.
yeah, so I was thinking of uploading a, you know, uploading a sample of his voice and telling it to create an audio track in the same voice. Um, and but I haven't decided what I want it to say yet. Um, I got to get the video done. You know, the video, getting it so that he's applying makeup and becoming increasingly vampiric as he does is the project. I've got a lot on my plate right now, so I don't know how long this project is going to take me. But it's my first deepfake video of a real person in the political context, and I'm hoping that everyone will take it literally and seriously and believe that Emil Bove actually created it and turned into a vampire.
I have a question for you. Um, I don't. I think that the way we've started using AI is completely different than what we were expecting when we were all freaking out about like just that deep fakes and like I think that 2 years or 5 years ago people would have had like a stance of like, no, I'm principled. I don't do deepfakes. Deepfakes are dangerous. And now everybody's like, it's there, it's good. Let's do it. It's so. Do you think that AI is akin to the printing press, and the changes that it will make will have a significant impact on like how we see the world, and like we'll shift out of the modernity thanks to AI?
That's an interesting question. So I think, first of all, that the use of AI to create a video like this is really much more like animation. Like if I made a cartoon character of Emil Bove, um, turning into a vampire, nobody would say, well, that's a great moral or ethical problem, right? There's something about it being obviously not him, and obviously he's not a vampire, at least not that we know. Um, and so like if the deep fake is not trying to convince you of something that isn't true that he did or said, but is obviously in the department of parody, then I don't think it's any different from any other form of parody, including, what we've been doing for years, which is sampling segments of him saying things to get him to say something that
But
he.
it democratizes the ability to do parody of that kind of quality.
So I think the democratized quality of it is the same as the democratized quality of everything else, which is, you know, basically a good, except that huge numbers of speakers are terrible, and so you have to think about the problem of very large amounts of bad information and slop, and even greater amounts of slop. But the specific concern about the deep fake was always, is it going to have great capacity to mislead? And the answer to that question is yes. But the ethical question of its use is a question of, are you using it to mislead? Are you using it to do something that you shouldn't be doing? And I think that's a use specific question. What am I
Are we
missing?
freaking out as much about disinformation, uh, like AI fostered disinformation, or have we just like decided that the world is not the same, like the internet is not the same as it was pre AI? It's more sloppy, it's way more sloppy, and we've just learned to deal with it. And the line between truth and falseness has been fairly manageable. We've been able to like, for instance, I'm on Facebook groups for selling and renting house stuff. And the amount of fake accounts there is astonishing. And I don't think that there are that many people who are getting scammed. I think that we've managed to learn how to distinguish what's real and what's not. And we've learned that, like, fake accounts are a thing. Uh, and I don't think the end of the world scenarios that we were imagining a few years ago have actually materialized. But I think that the shift that we're noticing is of greater magnitude. And I'm not sure if I'm A, explaining it clearly, and B, if I'm just hallucinating a change or it's actually happening.
So I don't know the answer to that question. It seems to my information consumption pre AI and post AI is not materially different because my working assumption has always been that if I can't identify the source of something and I don't trust the source, it's probably humans lying to me. And now it's humans assisted by AIs lying to me. And so I actually don't think my information consumption is very different, except in one important respect, which has to do with Google,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is that it used to be that when I Googled something, it produced a set of links and you would go to always on the front page, but the most credible looking link source that was the most responsive to the question you asked. Now, when you do a Google search, it produces what it calls an AI summary up front, which is an attempt to answer your question, and it is duly linked to sources, but it is doing this AI explanatory filter. And I will sometimes read that explanatory filter in the first instance, which I try never to rely on it as the answer to the question, but always to click through to the links that it's connecting me to for an authoritative or more authoritative answer. But I do sometimes, just as a shorthand, scan that, which does, I suppose, increase your vulnerability to, uh, I suppose, less manipulation by Google, because I don't think Google wants to misinform me about what a pronghorn is and how it's related to a giraffe. But it does make you vulnerable to hallucinations. And for exactly that reason, I do try as a matter of discipline never to accept that answer as more than a like loose table of contents kind of thing. Beyond that, I don't think I'm getting very much AI processed information at all, except in the very passive sense that, people share AI generated stuff on their feeds, and, you might see a screenshot of such and such piece of text that is in fact AI generated. But that's my passive consumption, not my active consumption.
Oh, but you've posted a few fake beasts on the Doctor Daily, and
Oh,
the
yes.
videos, like in the Instagram videos of fake animals, are a thing too.
Yes. So that was something but again, that fits into the category of adaptation, right? When when I started the Beast of the Day in the pre-AI era, and I would just post a cool beast. Um, and then it turned out that some cool AI beasts are in the modern age AI generated. And now we don't really do that anymore. Just stumble upon a beast and are we occasionally vulnerable to, getting snowed by an AI and posting what turns out to be a fake beast? Yes. Um, but actually, we tend to post more beasts now that we've verified, most that are more like from actual news sources that I've taken pictures of, or somebody I know have taken pictures of themselves, that they're YouTube videos that are actually describing so there's actually, it's caused me to be more, not less rigorous about, um, now, is there still a chance that we get snowed sometimes? Sure. Um, but I don't know that it's significantly higher than Photoshop was always a chance. So I think it's, again, I think the human capacity to adapt to AI bad information is very high, but you have to want to. Right? And I think the danger of AI mis and disinformation is that people don't actually want to be convinced. They don't actually want to verify sources. They don't actually want to know whether what they're dealing with is true. They only want to know whether what they're dealing with is fun and comfortable.
Well, is it like that was our working assumption pre actual democratization of AI? But in fact, I think that your experience is pretty much that of everyone else. I think that like your normal grandmother has been aware of AI and is probably like the people that we never thought would know AI and would be like cautious about it. We've talked about it so much that even they have started to be uh, like you'll call your grandmother and she'll ask you, "Do you have the code to like certify that you're yourself?" Or am I
That has
really?
never happened to me. But then again,
No, I don't have any grandmother either. So like,
my grandmothers are dead. But um,
mine as well. But I've heard stories of people who like have been asked to prove that there are the
okay,
people
but
who.
hang on. Let's. There would not be a gigantic industry on in Ottawa on Facebook scams with respect to the sort of things that you're buying for slumlording purposes if people weren't making money on it.
Yeah, but I haven't exactly understand how they are making money.
Well, so that's a really interesting question, and I actually think it bears some looking into. How do these scams actually work? And it may be that the answer is they're very low hit rate, quite high impact. But I don't know. And but I do think that one of the things about scam activity is that it doesn't happen if it doesn't work. Um, because it's a fairly time consuming thing to do, to spend time trying to steal people's money, and you're not going to do it if you're not, you know, the rules of economics are pretty consistently right about this. People aren't going to spend their time trying to scam each other if it's not worth it
Yeah, I'm
financially.
totally on with that theory. But my hypothesis for the moment is not that they're actually succeeding in selling stuff, but they might be gathering information or data. I think that it's probably a information gathering.
Okay,
Uh,
but the point is, they are fooling enough people about enough things for it to be financially remunerative to them.
well, yeah, but I don't think that people will actually go like to as far as sending money. Oh, I love your mattress. I want to purchase it. But they'll send a few information and like, oh yeah, I'm located in that area of the city. Can I? Do you
Okay,
think you could?
but maybe that's, you know maybe that's then the purpose of the disinformation, right? Like, sometimes the disinformation isn't designed to make you convince what you, or the misinformation, it's not designed to make you convinced of what it seems to be trying to convince you of. So as you know, Ev, but the audience doesn't know, the algorithm has been convinced for some months that I am in the market to buy a Ukrainian, I don't know, somewhere between teenager and someone your age, and keeps sending me these completely disgusting which I religiously screenshot and send to Ev, because Ev is the only other person in the world who finds this stuff as fascinating as I do. Um, but I'm not convinced that, like, I don't know what it is actually trying to do. I never click on the shit, so I don't um like it clearly knows I'm friends with friends and friends with a bunch of young Eastern European women. There are actually good reasons for that, but I respect the fact that the algorithm's conclusion from that is Wittes is a creep. Let's try to sell him one and see what happens. I respect that that would be a reasonable conclusion from the available big data evidence. Um, I don't know, is the idea to get me to, in chatting with some Eastern European young lady who can then scam me of everything that I want, is the action of everything I own, is the idea actually to try to get me involved in human trafficking? Is the idea, like, I honestly don't know what the underlying ambition is. I'm convinced A, that there is one and that it's financially remunerative, or somebody wouldn't be doing this shit. Um, and that I'm not being told the truth. So that there is some measure of fraud and misinformation and disinformation being used in order to get me to do something. But I honestly don't know what that is. But John Hawkinson clearly does.
Well, not quite. I guess I just wanted to clarify your interpretation. You make it sound, and I know you're doing this for humor value, like it's targeted at you. But I think it is almost assuredly the case that you are not, in fact, the target. You are just close enough to the target that you're swept up in the scope of the attack, as it were. And so it's not targeted at you, Ben. It's targeted at people who look kind of like you because the targeting algorithm is super coarse.
But that's interesting. So, what do you mean who look kind of like me?
People who speak English and interact with Ukraine websites or something big like that.
Right, but it's a little bit more specific. It's a little bit better targeted than that. So, people who speak English and look at Ukraine websites might get
Men,
um,
sorry.
yeah, so first of all, it's men. Secondly, as Ev and I have observed repeatedly, it's middle-aged men interested in young women. The thing is actually pretty focused on, selling age gap relationships. There's a lot of ads why Slavic women are particularly interested in older men, right? So I mean, there's something, like, I agree with you, and I am doing it for comic effect, that it's not targeted at me specifically, although I have been the subject of certain spear phishing.
Right, but that's
Um,
different.
but
Uh,
that's different. This is not a mass, the spear phishing is not mass scam. That's more like, oh, this is a guy who knows FBI officials and is at a think tank. Let's spearfish him.
and the
Um,
obvious target, by the way, is they're trying to sell you, either pornography or they're trying to scam you into paying money for either pornography or actual like lonely men on the internet want to meet women, pay for them to come visit you, and then they never come, and you lose money. I think those are the obvious scams we know about. Maybe Ev knows more about those scams. I'm not really a scam
No, I
expert.
don't. But I'm pretty Well, my working hypothesis is that there's there's only just collecting information is also something that they're looking for. Just like they know
As
that
in
they're not
collecting
good enough.
information in the sense of they're interested in the group of people who would even click on that.
Yeah, and I don't think that they expect to, I don't think that the operation is financially sustainable only if people are actually purchasing stuff. I think that just a few text message and exchange is sufficient to be worthwhile.
I
And
also
I think that this is the thing that we and we're not exactly sure yet, like what they believe is useful and profitable information. And people are like, just, oh, I don't do anything really significant. I just send a bunch of messages. So I'm not at risk of like losing my identity or being scammed thousands of dollars. I'm just like exchanging a few text messages. And I think that they found a way to monetize just exchanging a few text messages. But I don't know how they found that way.
I
I need to
also
research it.
I also wonder if maybe we're not seeing a fully developed product here. Maybe we're just seeing the experiments of uh, young North Korean cadets who are learning how to develop their AI game, and they have some basic tools that create fake accounts on Facebook, and they're learning how to make them work, and they don't actually work right now, but they you know they're close enough, and so they're not actually making money. They're just trying to learn how to do so. That's argument is kind of belied by the scale at which we see this at. It's not, but it's still plausible or possible.
Right.
How
If
would you
only A/B
investigate it?
testing. If only just like what works, what doesn't work, what kind of interaction work, what doesn't. If only that, I think it's still valuable.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I agree with both of you. I think there's a super interesting question as to um like what's the mechanism of monetization? What's the point of monetization? Is it sufficiently upstream that they are somehow monetizing merely having a conversation with them? Um, or is it actually reliant on significant collection against you, which is happening at what point? Or is it actually an attempt to sell you the young Ukrainian woman or the blank product of whatever the algorithm has decided is your particular obsession? Um, I would be really interested in investigating that and sort of figuring out how the scam how the scam works, but I'm afraid to click on the
Well,
shit,
Ben, don't
honestly.
you know some people who study this aspect of social media professionally?
Uh, um, Actually, scams are not our thing. Like we're more in the like if it's a phishing scam, if it's an attempt to get into your account, the answer to that is yes. If the if it's a sextortion scam, which by the way, a lot of these may be, right? You get
Or why not both?
right. But the sextortion scam is usually, not always, usually directed at the young woman, not at the middle-aged man. The exception to that is if
Well,
they
can you
think
define
they
your
can.
terms? I'm not sure. I'm thinking of what you're thinking of when you say sextortion scam.
So sextortion is you get chatting with somebody who is notionally going to be attractive to you, whether it is that sort of person or not. Uh, he or she sends you a nude, you send a nude back, then it
Oh,
turns out that the uh, person in question is actually a, a, a super, super malevolent person who uses it to extort you into making pornography for him, always him, or is a call center in the Philippines that uses it to extort money from you. Um, uh, the classic um, the the classic victim of the money sextortion scam is a male um, in a it's a huge problem in the military, actually. Young men in the military, uh, Muslim women all over Europe and India. This is a huge because you know, and sometimes that's not even over nudes. It's over have your a selfie with your hijab down.
And we've seen it domestically with teenagers. Yes.
Yes, but the that's the for money side. The 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 bigger problem in some ways is the sextortion for pornography production, which is an increasingly large industry in the non-consensual porn department.
So this is separate and apart, I'm sorry, from what I thought you were referring to, which is just getting people to pay for sex that doesn't arrive.
Yeah, that's more fraud.
Sure.
You know,
But I
I
was
think
under the impression that Rene DiResta and folks like that had studied some of this, sort of the scams that affect normal people on social media. Is that, but I'm not. So,
um so I think of Renee's work as less focused on scams and more focused on information ops. But they're related. Look, I mean, there's a John, I'm going to keep you muted because I've got a big hiss coming from your side. Um, uh, you know, the I don't think of her work as chiefly focused on scams, though obviously it touches on it. There's the same people tend to do lots of different things. What are you thinking, Ev? Oh, you're
Actually
frozen.
thinking about Renee DiResta, that feels like the stuff that she might have encountered and gather some insight about what it's for. If it is actually related to information operation and collecting data about people in the West and understanding how what works and what doesn't, it might be interesting for a Russian farm of some sort. If that's the purpose, and now we're not sure exactly what's the purpose. Is it a North Korean guy trying to improve his algorithm, or just like a pure phishing scam from Canadians or Americans who just want to do the big bucks? So yeah, I really don't know, but you were saying that you don't notice a big shift in your environment ecosystem, like, and the way you consume actual media, I'm sure it doesn't change much, but I think that your daily experience of the internet has probably changed significantly. As in, it's way more sloppy. Looks like 1995 internet with almost like pop-ups and like GIFs that move, and that is a shift that I don't know if we're talking as often as like. Yeah, my thinking is that we have imagined the future with AI as going like just exacerbation of the existent. And I think that we're actually moving to something uncharted and we don't know exactly what it would look like.
What do you think of that, John?
sorry, flipping an egg. Um, yeah, I mean, I think Eva's right that we don't perceive the shifts in our world, as drastically as we would as outside perfect observers. Uh, and so, yeah, uh, but I, I'm not sure. Actually, I also, since I was flipping the egg, I was a little distracted. So maybe I'll repeat the point.
Yeah, well, I think that we might like we've always imagined the future with AI, given our all the paradigms that we are used to, and we've always think about the future with AI through the lens of modernity, but we are not used to thinking in like a post-modernity world. And I think that is where we're at the moment. I think that like middle-aged people didn't really realize what the printing press would bring. Oh yeah, sure, it's the same thing. We're using monks, we're transcribing stuff. Now we're using a machine. It's the same. It doesn't really change anything significantly, so it won't make a big change. Yet over time, it really like transforms society, uh, instead of just like acts like making everything faster or bigger. It just like shift completely. And I'm trying to see what that can look like.
I mean, I have no quibble with that.
Yeah, as far as it goes, I have no quibble with that either. My my the problem is with a printing press, you see immediately in society the moment, you know, the pamphleteers got their hands on presses, you saw product that you all of a sudden didn't see before. And not sure how that happened, but we got cut off and now we're back on, and
And
Cleo is
Cleo is
upset
not
about
liking that.
something.
Um,
Sorry, you were saying.
I think you were saying that with the printing press, you've seen pamphleteers producing content that we've never seen before, and that it was a whole new world happening. And my question is, people going through that era at that moment, were they aware of these new things emerging? Or is it so obvious from now, like looking back, oh wow, these things were happening and it has been a major change?
So the
I think
person to direct this question to, who's really studied it in the English context, is Alicia, who it actually features, this question features rather prominently in a chapter in her book. I will say that no, they were very aware of it at the time, to the extent that, you know, in England there were active attempts to regulate or restrict the number of printing presses because, you know, you wanted to be able to control the information environment, and there really was a sense that there was something getting out of control. But remember that there was an absorptive capacity issue because literacy was not that high. And so, you know, if there's a limited number of people who can read, there's a question about what you know, there's a ceiling on the impact of a printing press or a million printing presses. But here you have the capacity to generate text, video, images, sound. And so, and of course, you have a distribution mechanism that goes into the pockets and brains of every person in the world. And so there really is no absorptive capacity question, except in the sense of, you know, if you overload people with slop, do they just consume more and more and more slop? Or do they start being, is the absorptive capacity question a one of people's willingness to engage the material? And I deal with this question every day in the podcast department, where, you know, we're really, you know, running up against the question of how many podcasts are people willing to consume? What's the, you know,
infinite number. Honestly, I think that
the data does not support that.
no,
No,
people are less interested in podcasts than they were.
no, I didn't say that. But launching a podcast these days is really hard. And the reason is that the absorptive capacity that people have for new podcasts. People are listening to a lot of podcasts, and their podcast day is pretty full. And by the way, there are more that they've been told are good, and every celebrity now has a podcast. And so if you're Ben Wittes and you're making Dog Shirt TV and putting it on a podcast feed, and you're not
Are
going to
you frozen?
buy a whole lot of and you're not going to buy a whole lot of advertising space for it, and you're not going to do pictures of yourself in a bikini to promote it. um you know like, how do you get it out there? What's the mechanism by which you convince people to do that? And that question was easy a few years ago, and it is not easy anymore.
Okay, I have a question for you about that. Do you notice a difference between launching a new podcast with new host and people who are listening to like the podcast that you've had for a long time? And do you notice a shift or a difference between having a trusted relationship with your listeners that have been following you for a long time, and do they are um they always come back to you? I think that there's also something of like creating a trusting relationship with your host, and then it's unbreakable. But finding new ones and like getting into the like relationship of trust with the new host is different.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting question. So, um, yes, the break-in costs, the costs of entry are zero, in financial terms, but the ability to generate audience is super hard unless you're trading on existing fame. The ability to maintain audience when you have good content is much greater, right? So if you're if you've convinced 20,000 people to listen to your podcast every week, the work that it takes to maintain that 20,000 is much lower. Um, that said, growing that is much harder than it used to be. Because for the same reason that breaking in, getting the marginal new listener is very hard. And I think that's part of what's driving the shift to YouTube, um, which is that growing audience on YouTube is actually a little bit easier than growing audience on podcasts, because the YouTube algorithm is so assiduous about, if my stuff is like your stuff and your stuff is like Kate Klonick's stuff, the YouTube algorithm is going to figure out real fast that John Hawkinson watches my stuff, so he should be watching your stuff, so he should be watching Kate's stuff. That the YouTube algorithm is really good about that in a way that podcast servers do not even try to do. And I think
That's correct.
yeah, and I think that much more than video, like, is what's driving all these podcasts to migrate in a video direction. That it's just a way of using the YouTube algorithm, of which there is no real analog in the podcast world. Apple does it to some degree, but it's not the same thing, and the Apple recommendations they're nowhere near as particular to you as the YouTube ones are. And so it's a look, I mean, in a world in which everybody can produce everything, um it's very hard to distinguish yourself. And I think the challenge of your question is, if you're trying to distinguish yourself by being accurate and high value and truthful, how do you distinguish that? And how do you get people to notice that feature um, of high value information? And nobody's cracked that, by the way. You know, like if you imagine you had a perfect an information source of perfect accuracy and an analytic value. It never made mistakes, and it always had very high quality analysis on every subject that it touched. Uh, how would you? What's the mechanism by which that would get favored over slop?
Well, for instance, I listen to a ton of podcasts by the New Books Network. And like it's super wide, but I feel like there's a brand. And that is the brand assures me that there is some sort of vetting process behind. So I don't always like the host. Some are bad. And I don't always like the books. Some are bad. But I trust that they've made a first round of selection and their content, like the amount of content that they produce is sufficiently wide that I can navigate only through their content and feel like I have like I don't feel like there's not enough content, but I don't feel like there's too much either. I feel like the way they are doing it is right good. So I think that Lawfare could do the same. Like, oh, each time that I see the Lawfare logo, I know that it is a trusted source. And I think that maybe you can, but also, again, the trusting relationship with the host. Are you there, Ben?
I am here. Cleo has unplugged my camera. And so she's decided to treat the nest of wires that my camera is part of as her bed in this room. She's also biting at a bunch of the wires, which doesn't seem like a good thing, but I
No.
am here. And I remind everybody that production values are not one of the things you're selecting for when you tune into Dog Shirt TV. And dogs meddling in things is one of the things you're selecting for. I'm going to have to end this show 2 minutes early to get Cleo out of the nest of wires. Folks, we're going to be back tomorrow. I don't know who the hosts are going to be, except that I know that Holly won't be one of them. I don't know who the guests are going to be, but I will be here. You will be here. And the puppy, I think, will be here too. See you
Good
tomorrow,
night.
Eve.
Bye bye.